Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you. Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 42. The deep freeze is in nationwide on this beautiful Wednesday, January 15th, and we're excited to dive back into the world of Ghost Machine's family odysseys. I am Nick, and as usual, I'm joined by my better half, Snoggle. We owe the listeners an apology this time, my dear. Do you know why?
I actually have no idea why. What are we sorry for?
Well, we're sorry because one of our gracious and dedicated listeners last time, Andy, sent us a wonderful message about how we should let everyone know about the book that we're going to read on the next episode. And we promptly did so. And now we've changed it, so we're not consistent. And so, Andy, you have every right to heckle us now further. But to let everyone know, we did try to give everybody 24 hours notice. We did post about it a day ahead on the Instagram. But we had a special guest host joining us for Geiger number 8, which is what we were going to do this week. But we weren't able to make that work due to some last minute personal changes. So we pulled an audible. We're doing Hornsby Halo number 2, which is a series that Snoggle and I are really, really enjoying. And we're going to be back to the world of the Unnamed next week with Geiger number 8. We are a little behind on that because we're going to talk about some news related to number 10 in this episode. But don't worry, we're going to get all caught up with the golden oldie that is Tariq, Geiger, and Barney, and Nate, and Zigzag.
I think it's pretty funny that we keep on having to reschedule Geiger when, in all actuality, we love all the Ghost Machine books, but Geiger's one of my favorites.
Yeah, we're going to have to do like a blitz, we're going to have to get caught up because there's some really exciting things that are happening there. I have 2 shout outs today. My first shout out is actually for Rebecca Eisnagel. And that is because we wouldn't be able to have this podcast today if she hadn't shoveled our driveway 2 times this week because I have been decrepit and unable to move. So the first one is a shout out to her.
It was interesting exercise. I'll be honest, I listened to a book both times. It was extremely hard, actually. Yes. Yeah. Be thankful for my sacrifice.
We are, and the listeners are too. As everyone knows, we're here in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area has been getting belted with a whole lot of snow this week. Our son was out 3 days and only in school 2. So it's definitely a cold one in 2025 so far. Our second shout out is really special. Now, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, but as usual, I'm going to spell it out for you. But it's Naestante Geek, which is Naestantegeek. And that's the username on Instagram of someone that recently collaborated with us on a really cool reel where he talks about Hyde Street and his passion for it. And he's got a pretty cool following down in Brazil. And what's so neat about this collaboration, everybody knows we love it when you want to collaborate with us because all we want to do is spread the love about Ghost Machine fandom, right? We want to grow the community every day that we can. And so we get this collaboration post as we often do. And he's got this awesome video. But every day, this was like a week ago, Snoggle, every day we're still getting comments on this post, like people that are engaged. And it's just such a neat thing to see a community organically growing because now we have people in Brazil commenting in Portuguese on other videos of our stuff, and they may hate it. I don't know. They because I can't understand. I don't speak Portuguese, but there's a lot of that happening. So big shout out to Naestante Geek on Instagram. Make sure to check out all of his content. It's really, really cool.
I'd be interested to know what I did a quick Google on what that means in Portuguese or Spanish, and it's like no rack or no bookshelf geek.
That makes sense. It might be like Geek or Bookshelf Geek because he has other folks that comment like frequently
Mm-hmm.
that have the word reading or the read book or book in their name. And I have noticed that many of those people that have commented on this video are people who have entered our raffles in the past. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it has to do with Yvonne's presence down there. I know that this particular Instagram user had met Yvonne at a con, and he actually
Mm-hmm.
contacted us because he was like, "Hey, believe it or not, it's very difficult to get Ghost Machine comics down here." And so he asked if we could send some down there. So obviously we're going to happily do that. But he's a big fan of Yvonne, and obviously everybody down there knows who he is. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool.
Really big, small world.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of worldwide innovation, I better get out of the way because Snoggle's back in the newsroom.
Exciting news in the Ghost Machine universe. A new character has appeared in the world of the Unnamed. The much anticipated release of Geiger number 10 was last week, and it featured the first appearance of a new character on its final page. You don't want to miss it. So if you haven't read that particular issue, get to it, and we'll talk about it in about 3 to 4 weeks' time. This is also the issue that features cover art from Kubert School winner Dylan Dietrich. This issue also features the return of fan favorite artist Gary Frank. Although we have enjoyed Paul Peltier thoroughly, it is nice to have our man Gary back. It was a packed issue.
Yeah, I will say about Paul though that
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy his art quite a bit, and it hasn't made me go take a look at other things that he's done because like I've noticed he's a regular in the new GI Joe and some stuff like that. That's pretty cool. So definitely still follow Paul Pelletier, the artist that's been on Geiger for the last couple of issues. This is big stuff though, and it's such big stuff that we're not going to specify any more than Snoggle already did. So definitely a key issue. If you don't have a copy of Geiger 10, you want to swoop that up from two different standpoints. The first appearance of a new character. I'm not even going to tell you anything about it. I don't want to spoil it. We're going to talk about it when we deep dive in that issue. It's going to be hard to avoid spoiling it if you're out there in the interwebs anyway. So I definitely would read it as quick as you can. It's also the first cover art that Dylan has ever done. And I did want to briefly do a shout out to Jason Herchowitz, also known as Millhouses, who's been on the show before. Remember our guest co-host for the MegaCon episode back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
Jason went and attended not one but two signings this past week. One was for Dylan, and Dylan did a signing in New Jersey with Rob Lee to celebrate his, this issue of Geiger. And Rob Lee was there. As you remember, Rob is a New Jersey native when we talked to him. And then also the same day, the legendary Jerry Ordway, who had done another one of the covers for Geiger number 10, which was an homage to the Superman with the car and holding the car up deal type of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
he had a signing the same day, and Jason made it to that one too. He was at both of them in one day. So that was pretty neat. And congrats to Dylan. That's the first time he's, as far as I understand it, it's the first time he's done an official signing in a comic book shop. So that's really cool.
That's awesome.
It is.
Yay.
And today we're ready to dive back into the family odysseys with Hornsby and Halo number 2. Did you get a chance to see all the fantastic covers for this issue, Snoggle?
I did.
Sure.
I am holding cover C in my hand right now.
Well, as you recall, Ghost
Pretty.
Machine fans, we're going to pause before we dive into this book so we don't spoil anything for you, but we want to run down the covers first so that when you go buy a copy, if you haven't already, you know what your options are. So you said you've got the C cover in your hand already, Snoggle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we'll start there. I like that one. It was pretty neat. It's by somebody new. It's by Chris Burnham, and the colors were by Brian Reber, who I have heard of. I thought this was a really neat cover. Did you like it?
I think it's actually particularly hysterical because I work retail, so I get to travel to a lot of malls. And it is very much a thing that there are like butterfly wings or angel wings painted on walls for people to take like Instagram pictures with. So I thought it was funny. I think it looks awesome.
I didn't know about that fancy trend there. But you're talking about how they're standing against a brick wall. It's Zach and Rose who are in human form. And then on the brick wall there are angel wings and then a devil's tail and horns that are spray painted behind them so that they can essentially like fill in that spot. And then on the ground to the side of Rose, there are two spray paint cans. At least one of the two of them, if not both of them, were the ones that did this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do like that type of art that's a bit of a departure than your typical superhero style. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you notice things like the wrinkles in their clothing, the way that the sidewalk and the structure behind them is kind of like decaying. Like I like the amount of detail that's in that. It was pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, we're starting with the C, so we'll go backwards this time. Have you seen this B cover that's actually by Gary Frank and Brad Anderson themselves?
Yeah, this is pretty awesome.
I like Peter Snebye a lot. Like I've talked about before, I've liked his art in BPRD. But what's it like for you to see a very different style? I would consider Gary to be a very different stylistically from Peter. So what's it like for you to see these characters like super different than what they're going to look like aesthetically when you open this book?
It's exciting, if that makes sense. Like, oh, it's very similar when people draw like different variations of people in general, like a cartoon variation or one that looks Pixar-y or whatever. I think it's nice to see the variety, and it makes each cover really special, because all three of these covers, by the way, are completely different stylistically. And I think that like adds value to the book.
For sure. To bring it full circle, the third cover, which is the A cover in this case, is the one that's by Peter Snebye and John Cleese. And you can even, with how frequently we talk about colorists, and obviously we focus a ton on Brad, you can even notice the difference between John and Brad's colors with how intimately familiar we are with Ghost Machine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's a different, it flows differently. I love them both. I really like it, but you can put them side by side and be like, oh, somebody different did those colors. And I really like that we as comic book readers can recognize that at this point.
Yeah.
What do you think of the action in this scene? It's a good precursor for the issue, right?
Oh yeah. Fired up motorcycle.
What I liked about this cover is it made me be like, what's this issue about? Because I doubted that they would randomly put like the demon bike and the demon looking people, you know? I figured it
Mm-hmm.
had to do with the context, especially because it seems as though the covers that deviate from the focus of the context of the issue tend to never be the A cover. The A cover seems to always coincide rather well with that.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome. Well, now we must take a pause, and it's a very important pause because it's a pause that will prevent you from having this book spoiled. So this is the official spoiler pause for Hornsby and Halo #2. So we're here, we're ready to spoil it, but to do so, we must tell you who is responsible for this fine Ghost Machine work with a creator roll call. So we have two creators, which are Peter Tomasi and Peter Snebye. Now, in this case, I do get the impression that Tomasi does the majority of the writing and that Snebye does the majority of the art. Colors were done by John Cleese. And as usual, we have our king of letters, Rob Lee.
King of letters.
King of letters.
Yes.
All right, so let's deep dive right into this bad boy. So as we left off, we were thrust right into the world of Hornsby and Halo, and we were with the understanding that they both do some sort of transformation, Rose into some demonic entity, Zach into some angelic entity, and as far as we know, it just happened for the first time, and they don't remember it. However, they now woke up the next day with some physical items in their possession to confirm it really happened. Is that right, Snoggle?
It is. And I love how this book starts off like as a chronicle reader of books where you read things in order, you usually get like, oh, I'm going to find out what happens next and what happens next. But they start off with it's, Warwick, New York, and it's a wooded scene, no words or anything, just slowly showing something emerging from a cave and then like fire. We won't revisit what that was until, later in the book. But I thought that was a really neat illustration of you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels of just happenings like, oh no. And then the forest creatures scatter and then there's fire.
And there's a little bit of light in a cave, right? We also are led in the direction of what we're supposed to hear and feel with Rob's letters, and he does all of it. He makes us hear the sound of the earth shaking and fire coming is what I would wager we're really trying to kind of get from this based on where this goes in a minute. He does it all with R's and M's. In this scene, we see 1 owl, 3 foxes, and a whole bunch of bats that come out of the cave once the fire begins to really come out. And it did make me think it'd be neat to see Peter Snebier draw a couple of characters from Rook Exodus, maybe. So that's going on at an indeterminate location, right? Because that's just in the forest. And then we cut to Rose's house at night at dinner time, which we know because Rose's mom comes to her to tell her dinner's ready. And what is Rose doing when her mom tells her to come to dinner?
She's being sneaky with the stolen goods. So she's kind of hiding out in her closet. I do think it's interesting that she still doesn't know that the dog is not just a normal dog. I do think it is very much on purpose that Tucker took that necklace in his mouth when the earthquake began. But she's taking pictures of herself in the fancy necklace. And then obviously we get the earthquake that we can assume was caused from whatever came out of that cave and started the fire.
We do. And so before I talk about the earthquake, I wanted to point out that Rose is the one who has the demonic nature, but is being nurtured by angelic people. We have seen her do good things in the first issue of a good-natured person. However, in just this one page, we see her lie to her mother and taking pictures of herself wearing something that she knows she shouldn't have. I know we don't ultimately have absolute clarity on if she understands that she took it from bad guys and it should really belong to somebody else. But we do know that she knows it's not her stuff. And what we're starting to see, because this whole book is about what's more powerful, nature or nurture. We're starting to see okay, that's her nature peeking out because that's contradictory to the way that her family behaves. But like you said, the earthquake comes. I loved how we get Rob's letters again, but then the panels are not the panels are all off kilter on the earthquake page. That was great to me because I was like, I'm in an earthquake.
Yeah. And then, we turn the page. Her family is all as a unit running outside. They've got a plan. Their parents are checking on her. They get outside and Tucker is desperately trying to show the mom, do you not see she has this necklace she's not supposed to have? And the mom is just, it goes right over her head. And Rose is able to get the necklace back before they see it. So I thought that was really awesome.
You can even see in the way that Peter drew Tucker's facial expressions. So the dog's facial expressions, and I'm not talking about those new Disney CGI movies where every animal has a facial expression. I'm talking about 2 particular panels The one where mom says, "Did Tucker eat something?" And Rose is pulling it out of his mouth. You can see in his eyes he is upset. And then you can also see on the next panel where mom asks, "Was he choking? Is that why he was jittery?" And she lies again. She says
Mm-hmm.
he's good. It was just all the excitement. And you can literally see on Tucker's face, he's like upset. He's like, "Nope, this is not good. This is bad." And it's like, okay, does that mean he knows he's trying to always stave off her evil nature or her demonic nature? Something like that.
Yeah.
But clearly they're in an area where they're used to having some earthquakes because they mentioned like that they drilled this and that, they have a process to make sure everybody's safe. And then just like we saw in the previous issue, we get to see the parallel with Zach's life.
Which is not as fun. Zach's investigating in his basement with his lovely cat in the funeral home. And he's trying to figure out, like, man, where did I get this sword? So we get to kind of see that he doesn't remember exactly how he got the sword.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't know where he was at. There's not a lot of consciousness on his part to how that all happened. But while he's trying to research that, we get the earthquake scene from him. And in the bottom panel, when the earthquake scene starts, I love that you can see his little Joe falling off the shelf. And the letters from Rob are so good. It's like, like earthquake sounds. They're feeling.
It's so much fun. This is why you got to read comics more than once, people. I didn't notice the Junkyard Joe peeking out. I remembered he had a Junkyard Joe on the shelf in the first one, but when I read this, I didn't notice Joe falling on the side when like his other stuff is also starting to fall around him in the room. I did like how it is a passive way of indicating we aren't really sure how much he remembers because he's trying to do research to see if anybody's reported any vandalism at the cemetery, and apparently somebody has, but it doesn't seem like he totally understands really why. But it matters to him because again, he's someone with an angelic nature. Before we talk about the parents, what'd you think about how his cat just bails on him?
Parents and his cat bailed on him. And
And
he's looking for them because in his nature, he's like, are you guys okay? He's like, even when down where all the dead bodies, like he's looking everywhere. And you can tell it's bad because there's stuff falling out of cabinets. You've got a whole entire coffin that slides down and falls. And they call him.
yeah, there's two key things to highlight the situation. One is that the cat dives out the window and he says, "Every cat for herself, huh?" To me, and this is at this point, I guess, just a theory, although we do know that the two pets are thousands of years old. To me, this means Tucker is of an angelic origin, and he's trying to make sure that stays the way it's supposed to. And Pepper is of a demonic origin, which also would explain like the little lightning bolt looking black Z looking things on her forehead, maybe. But she's gonna bail on him because she's essentially like evil or whatever. So I don't. That's not confirmed, but to me, that's why they're there, and then that just shows something about her character. This is just to me, Tomasi doing this is amazing. The gravity of how hard it hits you when you realize that the parents are calling Zach while he's inside the house to ask him if it's safe to come in. And it's not just because that makes them selfish jerks. It's because that means that they're assuming he's inside and they don't care. Also, the cat is like right at their feet happily, which is kind of weird. Like, he's with the people who are like, or she's with the people that are like her, if she's a demon, I guess.
What do you think about this bottom panel when he says, yeah, all safe, and his eyes, he's got heterochromia?
It looks like his eyes are two different colors, yeah.
Yeah, one's like silver and one's brown. What do you think that's about?
So I think that you have something there because if you look at the other panels, his eyes are all brown. And then the panel you're talking about, the eye on the left is brown. And then as our eye goes to the right, which is the direction that the creators want us to go, it's got
Mm-hmm.
a bluish, grayish tint, kind of like his angelic form is what I would go. Just because him having that nature and then realizing that there are things that exist that are just so distant from his reality and his perception of caring for others, that's a challenging thing to do, to face as a human.
Yeah.
Like even if you're just a person and you see that, it can be challenging. Can you imagine it being your parents?
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, just crazy. So the earthquake passes, the tone is set, and then we get to see Rose continuing to descend into evil, right?
Hey, she's just trying to get her money.
Yeah, for what? I mean, she's got this. Oh, well, that's the other thing. Okay, so she's riding her bike. She's going to a pawn shop because she wants to pawn all this stuff. So she has a sense, like she knows she's not supposed to have it. She lies about how she got it, so she knows that. You know, like what
Yeah.
is your read? To me, it's highlighting, hey, this is who she is naturally, not what her family would want her to be. Here's a good example to me that
Yeah.
she's going to be this. She's always going to kind of have this edge.
Well, obviously with the sunglasses on, I think it shows she knows what she's doing is wrong, going into this pawn shop. And interestingly enough, she wants to keep the necklace. She sells
Yeah,
off all the other things and she's like, but I'm gonna keep this.
people. So it's
Or
all
she's just vain.
bad.
She's a
Yeah.
vain teenager. She was taking pictures of herself with the necklace on. One would presume to put on like some sort of social media.
Well, or yeah, but the fact that she wants to keep it for herself is it's like not only is she gonna pawn stolen stuff from dead people, she's gonna keep one of them because she likes how it looks on herself. It's like twisting the knife, you know.
Yep.
And it's like even the guy warns her like, with all that money I gave you, I wouldn't be advertising that wad of cash. And she says, I won't, and I know. So it's like in her nature already. She's like, I know about not doing that. And there's probably not a great deal that her really good natured angelic type family has taught her in this regard.
And she woke up very early to go do this because you can tell, like, from this is at dawn.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same time, we turn the page, and her counterpart at dawn is trying to make right with the fact that he broke off a sword. He's like, well, I've done some investigation. Apparently, the sword came from a statue in a cemetery. With zero plan, he goes back there to put it back on the statue.
And you got to think it's probably very heavy. Like,
Yeah.
this would probably be rather difficult for a very strong person to do. Let alone the point that the quote unquote gravedigger, who's not really the gravedigger, makes about the adhesive. But yeah, so it's a great juxtaposition because we go from Rose, who's showing that she's willing to, at the drop of a hat, take an easy shortcut, essentially. And then we have Zach, who has a really hard, difficult life, lacking love. But because he knows this is a horrendous misdeed that he wants to make right, he's going to go to the extent of kind of sort of having a plan, but not really, but having to do it. Like it's ultimately paramount for him that he fixes that sword back to that statue so he makes right what he did wrong. And then the gravedigger, who, walks up and catches him, he kind of points out how physically impossible that would be, even if you had the right type of materials and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because he says like you came to right or wrong, and basically says that he's doing a good thing, so he'll help him out. But when you see him drive away, that well, you also notice that he's sitting on a pillow to drive because he's nowhere near the right age to drive, which like doesn't even occur to you until that moment because he seems like he's taking such ownership of the situation.
You get this, I mean, these three bottom panels are super cool because it shows that the gravedigger and the bus driver are one and the same person. You know, that line of light that goes down.
Mm-hmm.
You can see like that apparently this is the adjudicator. So I'm wondering if he can like kind of possess different, or if he is all those same people at the same time. Does that make sense?
But he's got those glowy eyes that we saw. And then after Zach goes away, he does the thing that you mentioned where the light goes down the middle. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
cool energy flash. And then we see him, he's got like a construction vest on and a hat. Perhaps he's now shifting to looking like a construction person because he's
Oh
going
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to repair that. But what I did like is that after the transformation happens, you see him floating. So he's got the ability to like float up, and then he just touches the statue and fuses it back together.
I like the color on this panel with the speckles in the back.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks neat. It really stands out on the page, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool. Nice touch to show like something otherworldly is happening here.
And so that we don't know he's the adjudicator yet, though, right? We learn this a little bit later in the book. But I'll tell you, even with that cover that I said earlier was like, yeah, this usually the A cover tells you like something's going to happen. When I turned the page to this, like the half splash of a bunch of demon bikers attacking
Mm-hmm.
their nice little town, that is not what I expected to happen in this comic book today.
I love how we get this big splash page with a panel, a series of events. So Rose is riding her bike. Obviously, she's got her, money. Hooray. And so Zach is driving in the car. Love the touch where they said, sorry, turn music louder instead
Yeah.
of what we all know it's called.
Yeah.
And he hits Rose.
Wham.
Now she's doing something bad, and this is the first time where he might see her as doing something bad too. Because he's like, it's sure that necklace looks like, because he's remembering the stuff that happened when he was,
Mm-hmm.
in angelic form. And she's like, it's an old thing, a family heirloom, my grandma's. So she is a lion.
To everybody.
Yeah.
To everybody. So when you first saw these bikers coming in, so we're talking Ghost Machine fans that there's some of them are choppers, some of them are regular bikes. They all have these like bone demon like things on them, but to me it was enough where it's like I couldn't tell. I distinctly remember on this scene like looking really close at their ears and their teeth when they first pull up onto the street and they got this big old Robley VRR triple OAR sound. And you see these people and you're like, are they people or are they messed up? Are they creatures from someplace else? Because I really wanted to know, like, are bikers just attacking this town or are they demon bikers? And it does appear, even before it's clarified, that they have some like otherworldly features, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, first of all, on the splash page, one of the bikers, this main dude, looks like he kind of has, like, he looks kind of wolfish,
Mm-hmm.
elongated fangs, etc. Not to mention, all of their bikes actually look demonic. Those are some custom built bikes.
So we get a couple of panels of the bikers getting there and somebody that's inside of Joe's bar or diner, it looks like, gets thrown through a window and we get this great crashing sound from Rob. And it's Rose who's like gonna go straight up in there because it looks like the bikers went into this bar first to cause trouble. So they're causing trouble. They throw somebody through a window, and it's Rose who's gonna go in and confront them. And it seems like here's where we see another side of her, where it's like, well, she wants to do the right thing. She says something about how her dad always says the only thing necessary for evil to win is for good people to do nothing, which is a pretty famous quote. And she's in there basically telling them why they should get out of there and defying them. Then she thinks she can give them a bunch of cash to get them out. And as demon bikers would do, they would just take the cash and not leave. But as they're talking about it, we kind of get the impression that they're not just in town to destroy everything, they're looking for something. And even one of them says that they're in town to find their buddy. And they quickly realize that their buddy is her, as far as we can tell.
This whole scene where the one biker is holding her arm, and it's just like she actually sees through her who she actually is, and you're her. It's you. And again, Rose doesn't still 100% know. She's like, what are you talking about? Let go of me. Mm-hmm. You're the reason we're ... And then all of a sudden, you get Zach, who's like, I as well am going to help by stealing one of their bikes.
And he steals the bike, and he says, bad to the bone, which makes me think of Terminator 2. Because he steals the bike in the beginning, and that song plays in the background.
Do you find it interesting that one of the bikers said, my beast? Like, maybe these bikes on a different plane are actual, like, hellish creatures?
I think that is absolutely what they are, and I think
I love that.
See that. Yes.
I love that.
A very good.
Get that kid, and then a chase ensues.
Yeah. And there's some levity to it, right? Like, even when Rose wants to get her money by stealing it out of the demon biker girl's pocket, and then she pokes her in the eyes so that she can distract her. You don't get the sense that any horrible tragedy is about to happen necessarily, but the bikers are chasing Zachary. Then it looks like he gets one of them, knocks into him, and it throws him, and then he goes unconscious.
Real quick, it says we were freed from the eternity wheel for you, girly. What do you think the eternity wheel is? Some hellish torture?
We see the eternity wheel at the end of the issue. It's a wheel that they have to push indefinitely while enduring horrible pain.
Oh, I mean, I know they're demons, but that's a bummer.
I like those details because it really cements, hey, they're from hell.
I do want to say during this bike chase scene, I do really, really like the colors here, where it's like you're going down and it's got all of this like yellow speckled. It brings the light in a different way, kind of like showing the dust from the road. Mm-hmm. I think that is a really, really cool coloring we get on these panels. And he said he kind of reeks of warm bread and honey. So apparently that's what angels smell like. Warm bread and honey.
That makes sense.
And then he's like, oh no, matter of fact, he smells like a damn ... angel.
And so here's another part where I made some observations. The angel seems to come from his unconscious form. I believe we can see his unconscious form still there on the ground.
Yes.
So that appears to the mechanics of that, at least right now, seem to be a bit different than Rose. Rose seems to change into it. But the angel, though, is clearly not speaking as Zach, because he looks at the demons and he says, run down a kid, huh? Let's see how you like getting... Wait a sec, you're not bikers, you're firewalkers. So
who let you loose?
Yeah, who let you loose? Yeah, exactly. And so it's very clear, like, okay, he's not Zach, he's not Zach's consciousness, and he's very familiar with heaven and hell and creatures and whatever. And he's pretty tough, because as soon as these guys realize what he is, they seem kind of intimidated by him. Like, they don't seem like they're like ready to beat up the little angel necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so he flies. He's immediately driven to fly very quickly away. But then we get
just to help Rose, really.
Yeah.
I think he knows like they're going for her, because he has a little bit more information about what's happening. Angel Zach does. And she's in this alley. And then there's someone who's very not biker-esque, where she's like, "Who are you? Basically, get off of me." He's like, "I'm here to help illuminate the path of your destiny. You need to be true to yourself, your inner core." And like, he's trying to give her this advice, and then he just vanishes because he's obviously been pulled up by the adjudicator, but we don't know that at first. And I think that's really cool because it's just like she's talking to him and poof, he's gone.
He just poofs, and she's like, I must have been dreaming. And then we see, I guess we can call him Zach for now, but it's the angelic form Zach who, as far as we know, Zach is still unconscious back by the crash, but the angel zooms in to assist, presumably to assist Rose, right? And then like we get a pretty significant change of events.
Yeah. I mean, so he goes and like knocks the biker down, right? And then you see we've got the adjudicator and then I love the lettering and the bubbles for when they're communicating in their actual forms. Like Gak, the charade. And it's just, yes, let's. Which I'm picturing, I don't know. I'll let you know the voice of the adjudicator in my head. It's
James Earl
the
Jones.
guy from
James Earl Jones.
No, not James Earl Jones. It's the guy from the
Matrix?
No.
Well, then that's Lawrence
It's
Fishburne.
it's the guy from State one of the insurance commercials.
Jake from State Farm?
No.
So you're talking about the adjudicator who's interacting with the demon that poofed a little bit earlier. And the reason that we know that is because we have a panel where we see somebody in a humanoid form at the top of a building on a roof with glowing golden eyes. And we see him holding somebody else who has a little flame jumping off his shoulder and a tiny little red lens on the front. So we know that he's holding the guy that had the weird brief conversation with Rose in the alley.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just get this bam of this panel where it's a different dialogue bubbles. And we see the adjudicator talking to a demon. And it appears that demon that was talking to Rose is not necessarily like a super high ranking demon or whatever, but he tells him that the bikers that are there because they agreed to have a reprieve from the eternity wheel, like you said, even if just for a short time, to go on a covert mission of influence and enlightenment.
I love when the adjudicator says, "Who are you to jeopardize the pact between the realms, you insignificant slug?"
Yeah. It makes you wonder he must just be some minor whatever. But
and then he laser eyes him.
Well, and I liked how he laser eyes him and he says, "Tell your acolytes I'll be here waiting for them." So we know that guy isn't like necessarily in charge, but he's probably a manager of something or whatever because he's got
Yeah.
But you also know that when he zaps him, he's zapping him back to hell. And because he's going to be able to presumably tell the other ones there what happened. And even when he does that, though, there's a couple of bikers that are still chasing Rose. The angelic form snags him. But then I love this panel with the adjudicator holding both of his hands up. His design as a character is just so cool. And the color, the way cool. that John puts space. I feel like I'm looking at space when I look at that guy. And I think that's what it's meant to indicate. Like it's neutrality. It's omniscient power over both realms or influence, whatever. And he banishes the firewalkers back to the eternity wheel. So he has the power to do that, which makes sense because he was the one who was ultimately arranging this to maintain a balance. Then we do see the angel come back and go back into Zach, and then Zach wakes up. So we see that is a separation there. So it's curious to see where that will go.
Yeah, I like that.
As they both go home, we get one more instance of Rose. She's going to get in bed. She's trying to sneak in so she doesn't get in trouble. And you see that look on Tucker's face where like he kind of is worried. But even when mom comes in to check on Rose, she thinks it was Tucker making noise and not Rose. So,
Mm-hmm.
and there's
Tucker's
just,
like, you fools. Your
yeah,
doctor's being bad.
she's so evil. And there's this panel where she's kissing Rose good night. She says, "Pleasant dreams, my good girl." And you just see this tiny little eye
Sliver.
open. Yeah, this sliver of an eye open, which says, "I'm being bad," you know? And
And then Zach's treatment is he walks in super late and they're like, his mom, "Did you clean the hearse?" His dad, "I'm glad you got in a fight. About time."
hope the other kid looks worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be par for the course for them. I that's a challenge for the writer of this one to continue to come up with more and more reprehensible things for those people to do.
I mean, geez Louise.
Yeah. So I love this last page though. There's
I do too.
it's revealy to me. What did you take this as?
It's like she's sleeping. Tucker gets weird eyes where, like, if we didn't know, okay, think about it this way. If we didn't know that it wasn't just a normal dog, storytelling wise, the eyes glowing the way that they are indicates, oh, this is not a normal dog. It's almost like a beacon that
Mm-hmm.
called him to talk to whomever he's going to talk to. And we get to see him talking to through the fence with like weird symbols, which is, I mean, just to indicate that it's another language. Obviously, he's going to talk to, that must be what angel language looks like, triangles and different things. And it's just, all right, it seems like the other side has made the first move. We'll just have to make the last one.
And the person that says that is the humanoid that Tucker comes to talk to. And that person's eyes glow identically to Tucker's eyes when Tucker got called out to him. So it seems as though that, to me, this represents the side of heaven, also that there are people on the side of heaven who have every intent of not honoring the treaty as well.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. You know, that's understandable there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant battle of good versus evil. Good's not just going to be like, we'll let them do these things. They're going to try to have, I mean, I guess we're about to see, because it looks like we're getting zombies next book, which I'm very excited about.
Absolutely. There is a pretty cool bio in the back for Rose. One thing that I liked about that is that it points out as she juggles all the craziness thrown at a young girl her age while also battling nature and nurture at war within herself, after learning she may be all that stands between the simmering cold war of heaven and hell. I thought it was neat how they referred to the current conflict as a cold war between the two of them. We have a listener mail, as usual.
This month's message comes from Karamo. Karamo writes, "How do you guys always know when the FOC dates and release dates are for the comics coming out? I love listening to your show, but would like to be able to check for myself ahead of time." And I will say one thing that we do on the Instagram, and I know it's talked about on the Facebook, is post about those FOC and when books are coming out. But Nick, maybe you would like to shed some light on how we get those dates.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a good question, right? Because you don't want to have to track down one of our posts or even like Ghost Machine Pro obviously puts out a lot of posts about this. We try to do fun stuff that's for fans and sometimes we do include the FOC dates, but the pro folks do such a good job of doing that we really try to back them up with our own goofy stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But in order to be able to do that accurately, the best place to go is if you just Google lunar distribution, or you go to lunardistribution.com. And right there on their homepage, they have, if you scroll down, they have previews, specific stuff for brands, and then upcoming FOC and new releases are the two categories you want to check. And then right at the top, there's date ranges. So obviously, typically FOC dates are Mondays, although many shops stop accepting orders on Sundays for a variety of reasons. So you do want to check on that. Like my shop doesn't accept orders after Sunday. So I have to put all mine in by Sunday. But the technical FOC dates are typically Mondays, and new release dates are most often Wednesdays for issue-based comic books. But, you know, that is a really important thing, especially if you want to reserve your stuff like way ahead of time. Look at it yourself is a really good way to do that. So I would check those out. There's no learning curve or anything like that. There are other cool sites too that are mostly fan based, like League of Comic Geeks is another one that will have those dates on it. I just found, and at the recommendation of Ghost Machine as well, that the Lunar site is the most up to date every time because they're the actual distributor. So if there's a delay, usually the Lunar site will reflect that sooner than anything else.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Karamo, for that fantastic listener mail. If you want to send us a message, feel free to do so at ghostmachinefans@gmail.com. And if you want to check out all of our other fantastic content, you can go to www.ghostmachinefans.com, where you'll find our Instagram, our wiki, our Pinterest. There's a Reddit that a friend of the show has been running for a couple of months right now that's been going strong. And I would encourage you to check out the wiki. We very much could use more contributors. Cameron Gill, our Twitter and Blue Sky captain in the UK, has been adding a lot of articles recently to that as well. So thanks a lot, Cameron. And thanks so much to all of you for hanging out with us tonight on the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast.